Korbin's Adventure.
Kerbal Space Program.
Kerbal's Giblets. Can you put that as a cold opening? Welcome back to another heart-pounding, exciting, panties-urinating episode of the Gimp Mavericks.
Will Goku be able to defeat Major Metallitron? You'll have to wait until next week to find out.
What the hell's Major
on this
Metallitron?
Next exciting episode of Dragon Ball.
Lizard Sphere X. Oh, are you watching the original Dragon Ball again?
Yeah.
Ah, okay, I gotcha. We're finally playing Korbin's Adventure, all of our longtime fans.
Yeah, all one of you.
Do you mind if I delete any of these?
Yeah, go ahead. None of those are mine. I bought this, and then I never actually...
I suppose.
No. I buy a lot of games just so I can have stock footage of them, because, like, I'll always be like in my reviews. In the Mega Man games, you actually have a real health bar, and you can control your jump in midair, and I'll have clips of them.
I was a big fan of the Mega Mans when I was a kid.
And for the longest time, I only owned Mega Man 4, so recently I'm like, okay, fine, I'll buy the other ones, even though they're... I don't have video games. I don't play video games, Ethan. That's stupid. I only have video games to record footage of. For the uploads, I don't upload. Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's not a jab, but... Like, I don't play video games. I just have to beat the game.
I don't want to play the game. I just have to record the game.
Mikey is here to review your games. Why does that not work?
So longtime fans might remember that EXO... Okay, so down to your left.
Yep,
that white... Yeah.
This is the only one I know. It's not even a button, it's just the UFO. Son of a... I just lost it. It doesn't respond. That's fucking dumb.
Yeah, it's like that fucking CDI Zelda game where they put you in front of the door, and it's like enormous, but the room's also fucking dark, so you can't see anything. You can't
see it. I can't imagine how miserable that game must actually be.
And before anybody asks, no, I do not own a CDI, nor do I own one that is RGB modded and ready for recording. Yeah. I don't even know if there is an RGB board for...
I can't imagine there would be, because I'd imagine that would be so archaic, and... There aren't any real games, like, worth playing. The only games worth playing are those Zelda CDI games, and they're terrible.
And they're also expensive as hell.
Yeah.
But I imagine that the CDI has no copy protection, so you can just burn your own discs.
I'm sure. Because it's not like many people... It was the first disc-based No,
the first one...
The Turbo CD.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is Korbin's Adventure.
Yep. The prequel to Kerbal Space Program.
And the sequel, too.
So this is one of the major differences between the NES and GBA that I'm aware of. All of the sub-games and the mini-games are different.
Really?
Yeah. Except for one. The shootout one where you press the button.
That's the same.
Yeah, that's the only one.
Version?
Nope, they don't have the crane game in it. Instead, I think you play... It's like a hot potato game where, like, you have frying pans and a bomb.
Shit! Well, let's do a little bit of talking about the game first, shall we? It's gonna fall. Fuck you! Sorry. We'll talk about this a little bit. First of all, I'm in Washington, or Seattle, as Mikey calls it.
He's annoying me because, it annoys me very deeply when people say, like, oh, even though I'm currently in downtown Redmond, I'm in Seattle right now. And it's like, no, that's like saying that Albany is New York City. It's just not true. But people know nothing.
That's upstate New York.
Exactly. Well, I mean, like, Albany in New York City are completely different cities.
Yeah.
So it's like trying to say that they're the same thing. But the problem is that nobody knows about anything about Washington except that there are trees and that Twilight takes place in it. And maybe they remember that Hank, or what the fuck is his name? The guy. No, the guy who... Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks and that lady were in that one email movie that was sitting in.
Don't mind me. I am pretty rusty at this game. It's been a lot. I was about to say, this is one of my favorite Nintendo games, but I really don't... I haven't played it in a long time, but it's a really easy game, and I'm like, hey, while I'm out visiting the Washington, it would be a lot of fun to play some gold games for Gimp Mavericks like the old time.
Yeah. I think this is one that Ethan wanted to play like a million times.
I was about to say, whoops,
you already wasted it.
Yep, I just wasted it.
because there is no bomb copy ability in this game for some reason.
Well, it's the first of its kind. Go easy on it. Just kidding. Sorry, you'll notice that
Go easy on World War I. It was the first of its kind.
Anybody who would as if anybody's ever going to watch this past watch it in general, or watch it past the period of time in which we upload it. Things are a little icy and dicey right now. Between the old Russia and the Ukraine.
Yeah.
So, future generation... I can't fucking get that.
Yeah, you don't have a power that can reach that.
It's only...
But Ethan would always be like, hey, Mikey, I would really enjoy playing Korbin's Adventure for the Nester on the show. And then I'd be like, no, we gotta play the GBA version. And he'd be like, no, I want to play the Nintendron version.
And then he'd be like, no, we have to play the GBA version.
So we just never played it.
Yeah, exactly. So we just never got around to... Damn it. We just never got around to doing it.
Also, I should note, at the time, we would have had to record it with composite from a real NES or an emulator.
Like what we did with Mega Man's 3, 4, 5, 6, Castlevania, and they all look fine.
They look okay.
They're like as minimal as you can get.
But it's like, for some reason, the NES Virtual Console on the Wii U, which is what we would have had at the time, because that was, like, before the Switch was out. Yeah, the emulation for NES games on both the Switch and the Wii U is just fucking awful. They look terrible. Like, the scaling is wrong, the colors are all blurry and wrong. It's just terrible. So, obviously, now I have the RGB modded Nester for Ethan to play on. And then you can play on my PVM as well. We're recording with OSSC. You guys don't care.
It's fantastic. Like, yeah. It looked like this is authentic hardware, and it looks fantastic. Like, Mikey's really made a lot of improvements to his video game setup over the years.
Yeah. But it's like, you know, Ethan's only here for a few days. He's wanted to play this one forever, and I'm like, all right, I'll be the better man and let you play the version you want to play. Yeah, it's fine.
Appreciate that.
But it's like, you know, Kirby's Adventure is a really interesting game as far as, like, the whole remake thing goes, because obviously I'm the remake or re-break guy.
Oh, damn it.
It's a case where the original game is one of the best games on its respective consoles. Like, Kirby's Adventure is easily top 5 NES games, in my opinion. Like, just in terms of overall design, it has some of the best graphics on the system. It doesn't have a lot of the bullshit that a lot of NES games have to try to pad out the length. It's actually, like, a game that has a decent amount of content.
It actually has, like... And it's like all, like, each level is distinct from each other.
Yeah. Like, the level design is really solid. It has this really innovative copyability mechanic that was really interesting for its time. It actually has a story and some cutscenes in the game that's really cool. Yeah, so it's just, like, a really solid... And it's like most NES games I see, like, recently... Over the summer, I reviewed Metroid. The original one, which I think, personally, that game is hideous. It just, like, the graphics are terrible in the original Metroid. Everything looks like it was drawn by a third grader. The colors don't look very good. There isn't much color variety. There isn't much, like, definition to the environments. It looks like only a few notches above an Atari game, in my opinion. And I know the NES could do better even back then, because Super Mario Brothers is a better looking game than NES Metroid is.
I don't know, because I actually haven't played and beaten Metroid. It's one of those games on my bucket list, but I've never done it. I've never beaten a single Metroid game, actually.
Yeah. It's like, I have been informed since then that apparently... NES games, part of the reason why late release NES games look so much better is that they contain special chips in them called mappers or something.
They absolutely do. Like, this is basically hardly a Nintendo game. It's basically like, it's so souped up with the GPMs and the chips that
it has more teraflops.
Yeah.
Which is apparently a real term. It refers to 1 trillion calculations being made in a second. that's a teraflop. I don't know why that's a thing, but why it's called that.
How many trillions can be made in a second?
Yeah, like how many different individual pieces of math can be completed in a second? Because everything, computers do math. That's the fundamental aspect of everything that's going on. Like, and so apparently, the Xbox Series X can do like 64 teraflops, which is 64 trillion calculations per second. Which you need if you're making a 4K game and have to resolve all those pixels every frame. So, yeah. Yeah, but I mean, this game is obviously has the advantage of being released late in the console's lifespan, so it can.
Yeah, I was going to reserve a minute to talk about that because it's just so fascinating as to why. I've talked about this every single time we play a late release NES game. Like,
yeah,
the question is why. Why would this come out?
I definitely talked about that in the review, which was, I think you and I were rooming when I made. No, I was rooming with Tyler at the time, so that would have been like 2015.
Did you review Korbin's Adventure?
I did. I did a remake or rebreak on it.
That's right. It's been a long time since I've seen that.
And of course,
I have to go back and watch.
This is. I guess we could talk about that later when I'll be curious to know what the Meta Knight boss feels like on real hardware. Because it used to be, this game is actually the reason I went down this long and convoluted rabbit hole of trying to record games with real hardware, if you'll believe it. Because I did the review, and I was talking a lot about how, like, yeah, the controls feel really sticky and spongy, and the game drops frames all over the place, and there's input lag sometimes, and it has performance drops. Of course, back then I called it frame drops, which is a little bit of a different thing. And somebody left me a very long comment about that. So I was like, okay, fine. I'm gonna stop relying on emulators and Virtual Console for footage, and I'm gonna start using real hardware. Which I'm pretty much at the tail end of that. I just sent my PC Engine Duo off to the shop to get RGB and capacitors. I'm trying to think of what other fucking consoles I would even need at this point, modded. I guess a new 3DS, but they don't make those cards anymore.
They don't make them at all?
No. Like, there was this one Japanese company called Katsukity. I think that's how it's pronounced. That was the only people making new 3DS capture cards. But Japan passed some kind of fucking law that said that you weren't allowed to modify hardware or something anymore. Something really stupid. And so they were forced to close shop. But even then, I've heard a lot of bad things about them in terms of the mod jobs, because apparently...
Damn it.
Because, like, apparently, Ethan, you've done some soldering on portable consoles before.
Yeah, I've modded a original Game Boy and Game Boy Advance SP001.
Yeah, and if you thought the solder contact points on the Game Boy were small... Oh boy, the 3DS, and especially the new 3DS, is something different. And there's like barely any room in the plastic to hold the capture card. So apparently a lot of the time, new 3DS capture cards would get installed and they'd break the console. And of course you'd have to ship it to fucking Japan, which takes fucking forever both ways. And then you'd have to wait for them to actually get to it because they're people with day jobs and families. And
yeah, it's not a financially sustainable thing to work. It's a passion project for most to do this sort of thing.
To make a couple extra $100 a year. And it's like, thank God for that. At least those people are around to do that kind of thing.
Actually, you know what? I want Sword. That's what I want.
So, which is getting back to why this is such an interesting game from a remake or rebreak perspective. Kirby's Adventure as an NES game is like so groundbreaking and different, and it looks great and it sounds great and it's designed really, really well. Very much at the top tier of the console. But then when you throw the GBA remake in there, it's interesting because I think from a gameplay perspective, the Game Boy Advance version just plays better. But as a Game Boy Advance game, it loses a lot of the charm and the interesting, groundbreaking design relative to its console that the NES version has. He's nodding. You guys can't see it.
Yeah, I'm nodding. You can hear me. In fact, I really hope you can't hear me sniffing and breathing over here.
Sniffing.
Get back here.
Because it's like the NES version has really neat-looking visuals in it. Like right now, like look at those hills. That looks great.
I know.
And they're doing all this with like 4 colors. And then it's like you play the GBA version. It has, you know, like technically better graphics in terms of number of colors on the screen. It has a better frame rate. It has worse resolution because the screen is smaller, but you know, like it looks like a 16-bit game and stuff, and benefits from everything regarding that. But it's like, you know, some of the charm.
Power. God damn.
Some of the charm is lost in the process, you know, and then you factor in the fact that the Kirby games had improved pretty significantly in terms of like because it's like obviously this is the first game that had the powers, which was a cool idea on its own, but the execution of it is pretty limited. Like you press a button and it does a thing, which is fine in the context of this game. But then you get to the later games like Superstar and the SNES, and it's basically like a fighting game where like if you press all these different button combinations and you can do all sorts of different things with one power. There are fewer powers to compensate, but there were so many more things you could do with it. Like you could dash and attack. You and I did a playthrough of Superstar, didn't we?
Yeah, the third one, or the one on Super Nintendo. Did we? Yeah, I think we did. I forgot all about that. It's been so long since
Oh shit, the chicken.
No. Shut up. Oh shit, the chicken. How? Oh shit, the chicken.
It's been so... What was that in reference to? I completely forgot.
We were playing Mallow Castle in Dynablade, and there was like a chicken enemy running after me, and I was like, oh shit, the chicken. And then you're like,
oh shit, the chicken. And I was like, that tickles my funny giblet.
My funny... And you know, that... I mean, and that game is like great. That game came out in '96, and it's still one of the best Kirby games ever made. But it's just like after that, they didn't really seem to know what to do with the series. Like they made a sequel to the Game Boy games called Kirby's Dream Land 3, which I do not own yet because it's $70 and pretty rare, which is a decent price for a Super NES game right now. That's that rare, believe it or not. And that game is like, it has really neat looking kind of crayon kind of graphics. It's sort of like if you took the art style of Yoshi's Island and mixed it with the pre-rendering of Donkey Kong Country. It looks kind of like that. It has really neat looking visuals, but the gameplay wise, after Superstar, it is like a big step down. Because they took out the fighting game style controls, and instead they have like the friends from Kirby's Dream Land 2. They might have added a couple new ones, I don't remember. I think there was like a blob one that wasn't in the original.
You can't...
I think you would need like Spark or something.
But there's no Spark there! Fuck that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think there's nothing but a UFO there anyway.
Oh, yeah, I'll forget it then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just... Like, still, I have to question. This game came out in Japan 3 years after the Super Nintendo was released.
Oh, this was in '94?
Super Famicom was released in 1990.
Oh, okay.
In the Mihon. And then it was released it was released a couple months later in the US of A. What I really love about the Japanese version though is it comes in a nice pink cartridge, and it looks like a big old piece of bubble gum, and I like that.
Yeah, I might have to...
I have it on Famicom, actually. It's actually a really affordable game, too.
Oh, yeah. I might have to get my... I don't know, like, now that I have, like, I have a Famicom disk system now, and I have a little Famicom cartridge adapter. And, you know, speaking of mappers, that's the reason why... Because it's like, obviously, the Famicom comes out and it uses cartridges, and people are like, this is too expensive, we can't afford this. Okay, we'll make the Famicom disk system. And part of the reason they made it was because they could distribute games much cheaper than they could otherwise, and they were more affordable for consumers. So that's where the FDS came from. But then over time, it was like, okay, we want to do these more complicated things with our games, but we're stuck with the Famicom disk system in terms of hardware and mappers. Which is why they actually went back to cartridges later on in the system's lifespan. So that's why something like Kirby's Adventure was released in a cartridge and not on the FDS.
Because...
Yeah, I find that these guys are easier to fight with standard ability.
Sorry, I would have to concentrate here. Let me eat all of them.
And that's kind of the big problem with this game. And Ethan is probably noticing this right about now, is that this game has really sticky input latency, especially when you attack people with an ability.
It's because it has so many frames of animation. Like, it's not the worst it's not as bad as Dragon's Lair on NES by any means. Which, believe it or not, we went to 5 video game stores. I didn't see it anywhere.
When you attack people with like a copy ability, it has to like render a bunch of different little sprites to make the effect, and it looks really cool. But the trade-off is that you're working with limited memory, and limited CPU capacity, and it becomes really difficult to render all of that stuff at once. Which is why whenever you use like the spark ability is really bad about this, because it has to render all these little sprites.
I know, it always like, I'm not gonna be able to get that.
Yeah, it's not worth it. You'll get killed. That's like an interesting little designed encounter, though.
Yeah,
which is
risk getting hit by 2 enemies too.
Yeah,
and it's to get 2 hit points back.
When you're playing like a combat platformer like this, you want good responsive controls, and that's that to me is the reason why I would still say, despite all the charms of this version, the GBA version has way more responsive controls than this version does.
Well, we know what to play after this.
We're gonna play this game again, except on GBA.
Yeah, and then you can play that time, so then I can still enjoy. It'll be the best of both worlds. You can get to hear us.
The funny part is that if you had just dropped, he'd go like head down and do like a bonk thing where he'd kill the enemy on the way down.
Oh, bonk. I wish we could play it right now.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have something Spark for the PC Engine, and my other console's in the shop, so
Damn it. Yeah, like I couldn't turn around. I couldn't turn around to get to him just there, even though I tried to. Because like even just a little bit of not input lag, but feedback time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Anybody who watches our subtle and nuanced approach to this sort of thing.
Everybody comes to the people who make fart jokes for nuanced game analysis.
Yes, because we enjoy both.
Time to take a piss. Alright.
Microphone. It's the mic. Look, it's Mikey. Mikey, upload the picture of you with the fedora over the mic picture at the bottom of the screen.
I don't even know if I still have that.
I think I still have it.
A picture of me from 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That shit was hilarious.
Back when I was young and cute.
Cute. Damn it, I should have used the micro down there, because now I can't get the one man.
You can't press select?
Yeah, but then the mic, the one man. I'm just flubbing up here. Because I wanted that laser man, but I can't use the laser man.
Laser man.
Because now I need the laser man here. Actually, no, I don't. It would have been gooder, though.
It would have felt better. Because it's... Well... You would have had to wait for them to walk over the ladder.
Oh, well. You know, you win some, you lose some. Look, I got the laser. But why would they release this game in 1993? Like, you could have absolutely... They always stuck with that, because they even released those other Korbin twins games. Like
Korbin twins.
Up in the 1996, yo.
Yeah, well, what I've heard is that consoles generally have a much longer lifespan in Japan than they do here. There's a practice of handing down your older hardware to your younger siblings, kind of what you and Casey had growing up, I guess.
I guess?
Because apparently that's the same reason that Mega Man and Bass was made, for the Super Famicom and not for the PlayStation, even though they had already made a Mega Man game on PlayStation. They were like, we made one for the next-gen system, but I guess we'll make one for the little kidlets now. And then they made one of the hardest games in the series for it.
Yeah, or the little kidlets.
What
do you think is the harder? The Mega Man 4, the Mega Man 1, or the Mega Man and Bass?
Mega Man 1 is not that hard, in my opinion. I'm gonna say the hardest Mega Man game is 9.
You think so?
Yes, I'm going to say so. And it's not even the good kind of difficulty, honestly. It's the kind where it's like... Because, like, I know you like that game a lot. I think a lot of it... It's... the way I would describe it is... Jay from Red Letter Media will always say when he reviews, like, a really good movie like... Die Hard, that in the hands of a different director, that movie would not be nearly as good. It's all the little details about how the filmmaker put it together that makes the complete difference. That's kind of the case with Mega Man 9, in my opinion, where, like, you look at the original NES games, and for the most part, they don't have a lot of bullshit design in them. What's-his-face, Yellow Devil from Mega Man 1 comes kind of close, and there's a couple of little parts in Mega Man 2, maybe, if I want to really stretch.
In terms of what now?
In terms of, like, bullshit. You know, like, stuff that's designed to eat your lives away, so you have to play the whole game again from the beginning, and stuff like that.
I don't necessarily think... Because, first of all, it has unlimited continues.
Yeah, but, you know...
Second is...
it doesn't have ghosts and goblins crap in it. Let's put it that way.
That game is strictly... bull flatulence.
Bull flatulence.
Yes, we don't swear on this channel, by the way.
But you'll want the high jump. It'll make this faster.
Oh yeah.
And then they despawned. There are a couple of them up there. So
I don't know. I'll get to it. Oh, there's.
I forgot what we were talking about.
Lead Redder Media.
So Mega Man 9 kind of feels like that to me, like the same movie in the hands of a lesser director, where it's like we know what the original Mega Man games. Oh, by the way, that moon had a passageway to a switch in it.
Are we on stage 3 already?
I don't know.
No, because the first one's in stage triple. It's Yeah, no, it's not. It's not it yet.
Okay. There's some kind of secret back there. It's probably a UFO. Yeah, and that's kind of what Mega Man 9 is like. It's like, we know what the NES games look like, so we kind of replicated the art style really well. But we didn't, like, take a look at the intricacies of the design about what made them so good for NES relative to other games in the system that tended to rely on a lot of cheap stuff, like Ninja Gaiden sending you back in the final boss and stuff.
That's the only cheap part about that game, by the way. Like, that game is fantastic, except for...
And it's like, you play Mega Man 9... I want to say there's a part in... What is it? Gyro Man? Or the equivalent of Gyro Man? Sky Man? What is it?
Tornado Man.
Yeah, there's a part in Tornado Man stage where they're like these spinning magnets. And for some reason, even though this game was not made for NES, they designed it as though it was. So that when the magnet is off screen, its cycles aren't updating. And if you aren't in the right kind of, like, rhythm with the game, that can, like, fuck you over and get you killed. There's parts where, like, the wind will push you and you have to time.
What do you mean?
What I mean is that, and I'm kind of using game programming terms because since we retired Game Mavericks, I've gone to game design school and actually programmed games. An update is basically where something changes. You can think of it in programming terms like programming is linear. You do one action, then you do another, then you do another, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
NES games are programmed linearly, but nowadays there's something called object-oriented programming, which is beyond the scope of this video. Because that's what this video is about. But basically, it'll be like... You can think of an update as the series of calculations and changes you need to make to an object in the game every frame. So like a moving animation? Yeah, so like that can include animations, attacking people, sound effects, like when you actually start playing the sound, everything like that. So like for a standard game, there will be 60 updates per second. And each object in the scene might be updated, depending on what it needs to do. So while those little magnet platforms are off the screen, they aren't moving as they would be supposed to, because they're basically what they're programmed to do is move between 2 points and then spin the player while it's on it. But if they're off screen, their movement isn't being updated because it's supposed to be like an NES game where if it's off the screen, it doesn't exist. And it's like that can, if you get in the wrong rhythm with it where it's off screen for a bit, it can desync with the other ones on the screen, and then you can't make some of the jumps. Or at the very least, they're significantly harder because of that.
That's the whole point, is that you have to wait sometimes because they're moving at 2 different blah blah blahs.
Yes, but it can take a lot longer for that correct time to show up because of the fact that when it's off screen, it doesn't exist.
God damn it. Well, with that being said, why don't we call it here for an episode? Thank you for joining us back at the Gimp Mavericks machine, and I think we will go ahead and move on to the next episode. So join us back from good old the heart of Seattle, Washington.
Yeah, he's doing it on purpose now.
Beep. Right?
Yes, that's where we are.
Beep. Washington.
Don't come to my house, please.
Oh, yeah, no. You can call it beep, Washington.
We can call it Cornwood.
You can call it beep, California. That's where Weird Al is from. But thank you, and join us next time.